Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished talking about some preseason rookies we are excited to see this weekend and today, including Caleb Williams, confirmed to be getting his first real NFL action, something that we missed out on when the Bears played and won the first preseason game, the Football is Back game, also known as the Hall of Fame game. Very, very excited to see what happens to his career and the rest of this preseason. In this segment, we're going to continue our continued series talking about every single NFL team, their offseason, as well as what they are doing for this upcoming NFL season. Today, we are focusing on the Jacksonville Jaguars taking a trip down to Duval County. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports Network channel, you can go and hit that donate the $sign button, leave a super chat. If you do either of those, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars offseason has been interesting, right? This is a team that had a lot of high expectations coming off of a playoff win last 2 seasons ago now. Heading into last year, they were coming off one of the biggest playoff comebacks of all time. Trevor Lawrence looked great at the beginning of the season. They were getting Calvin Ridley back to enhance that weapon core that needed a boost, if we're being completely honest with you. And it started off great. They went 8-3 to begin the season, and then everything went downhill. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt against the Bengals. He continues to play through most of the pain, plays in almost every single game, but it just isn't enough. This is a team that ends up missing out on the playoff, completely collapses down the stretch, finishes 9-8 on the year, and that was an easier schedule than it was this year. This was a schedule that went up against a much weaker division than it is this year, and that's not to say that this isn't a generally weak division. I'd categorize this division more in the mid category with the improvements of Will Levis, the Colts getting Anthony Richardson back, and obviously you have the Texans and CJ Stroud, who came out of nowhere last season. They did only finish 10-7, but there's lots of momentum there with them. The Jaguars are a team that are kind of an enigma, right? We don't know what kind of Jaguars team we're going to get. We don't know, and I'm going to take them back to their last postseason win against the Chargers. We don't know if we're going to get first half Jacksonville Jaguars going down 27-0, Trevor Lawrence throwing, 4 interceptions, or second half Jacksonville Jaguars coming back from that deficit, having one of the best comebacks, largest comebacks in the history of the NFL. But this is a Jacksonville team that first and foremost needed to focus on getting their guys back, and they did that in a big way. Their defensive leader and their offensive leader both signed massive contract. Josh Allen, defensive end, coming off of a 16-sack season, signed a $141 million contract to stay in Jacksonville, followed up by Trevor Lawrence signing an absolutely massive deal, making him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. $55 million a year for Trevor Lawrence. That is a contract that is heavily under dispute for a lot of people. I've talked about it a bunch, especially when this contract came out. I think he's a guy that absolutely can play to the level of deserving that contract. Now, paying quarterbacks is complicated, especially a guy like Trevor Lawrence, because you can't let him walk. He's talented enough that you can't let him walk if you have the ability to re-sign him. but he's not talented enough that you can hand out that deal willy-nilly without having to think about it. It's an interesting spot to be in. The Jags kind of had their hand tied there where they had to give him a contract. I still think it was the right move, and I think he can absolutely turn this season, his career around. Not that it's a bust yet, or should be discussed as a bust. He's had a very tumultuous first 3 seasons. Obviously, one of them is under Urban Meyer. He's got the last half of this season got marred by injuries. He's played at MVP levels for large stretches of the season before. He just needs to get back to it. Now, what's going to hurt is the offensive line is bad. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. The offensive line is bad. It's not a good offensive line. They didn't get much better. They still have, their main piece on the offensive line in Cam Robinson, Brandon Scherf. They brought in Mitch Morse. So they've got a couple of names on the offensive line, but they don't have a lot of depth. So if something goes down there, they're in trouble. The other issue is with their weapons. Well, they do have great running backs options in Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, and Dearness Johnson. That's good depth at the running back position. When it comes to the wide receivers, they're super thin. They let Calvin Ridley walk. He ends up signing a big contract with the Titans division rival over there. Their wide receiver one, or their wide receiver trio, duo, whatever you want to call it, Christian Kirk, who's been very productive since signing his $70 million contract and coming to Jacksonville. Gabe Davis, who is one of, if not the most inconsistent players in the entire NFL. You see him go off for 150 yards one week and 3 touchdowns, and then drop all 5 balls that are thrown to him the next week. You never know what you're going to get out of him. Brian Thomas Jr. was their first-round draft pick. They had 2 draft picks. They traded back. They had the 17th overall pick, They traded back to get the 23rd overall pick, giving the Vikings the 17th overall pick. And they drafted Brian Thomas Jr., a speedy guy that I think is going to be really good. Outside of that, the wide receiver depth isn't great. And really, outside of Christian Kirk, there's not anyone that I can for sure say they can rely on. I love the idea of Brian Thomas Jr., and I love the theory of Gabe Davis, but we haven't seen Brian Thomas in NFL action, and Gabe Davis is incredibly inconsistent. They've got some burners on the depth, though. Devin Duvernay from the Ravens. Parker Washington is an interesting one. He's come up and gotten a couple of big plays throughout his career so far in Jacksonville. At tight end, they have the reemergence of Evan Ingram as he continues to be great away from New York. That is a great tight end to have. But when it comes to the defense, they obviously have Josh Hines Allen now. They bring in Eric Armstead, who has injury issues, is already on the injury report. Former first overall pick Trayvon Walker. So the pass rush, in theory, should be good. Where you start to run into issues is at corner, right? You have starting at corner Ronald Darby. You have Ronald Darby listed actually twice on their depth chart. This is a really weak corner team. Now, I like the safeties that they have. They've got Darnell Savage, who they brought in from the Packers, and that's a big move that I really do like. Again, they have him listed twice on their depth chart so far, so I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. They also have Adrian Amos, though, who I like. He's a little older, but I do like him at a starting safety spot. But this is a team that defense, they fired their defensive coordinator, is not really good. It's not the shining star. They need the offense to really come in and be that piece that they want it to be. As far as the draft goes this offseason, they had not the most exciting draft. I like that Brian Thomas pick in the first round, but outside of that, there's nothing that really wows me. Javon Foster is a guy that I think might be able to come in, make a couple of plays for them, but he's gonna add, that tackle depth that they need. We talked about the not having the depth at the offensive line if something happens. He's an important piece to have. This is not a team that inspires confidence if anyone gets hurt. While I say that, this is a team that I do believe in. I love Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if this is their year as the as their schedule continues to get a little bit harder from last year. Vegas has their win total currently set at 8.5. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to go over whether or not I think they can beat that win total. We'll go over their schedule game by game, give them a record, see if I have them making the playoffs. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the Jaguars offseason. I did forget to give them a grade. The grade I will give them is a C-. Not a great offseason for them. They lost some players positionally that I don't think they could have afforded to lose, and they replaced them. Especially at the wide receiver, it's a big downgrade for a team that needs weapons. But in this segment, we're going to talk all about the Jaguars' schedule, go over all 17 games, all 18 weeks, give them a record prediction, as well as whether or not they will make the playoffs in a stacked AFC. Right now, Vegas has the line set at 8.5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll see whether or not I have them going over or under that total. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports Network channel, you can use the super chat option. There should be a money sign right by the chat. Go ahead and leave that as well. I appreciate anything you guys do give. If you have a burning question or anything at all you'd like to ask, throw it in the chat. Throw it in the comments. I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule. The Jaguars have a very interesting schedule. I'll say, to say the least here. It's a very interesting schedule, right? Because they're in a division in the AFC South that I think has the ability to be really good. The Jaguars, the Colts, the Texans, and to a certain extent, I will say the Titans, all have a chance to be really good teams in the NFL. The Texans obviously have the clearest path to victory there. They're coming off of a season where they won a playoff game with rookie quarterback CJ Stroud. They only improved their defense and offense. The Jaguars fell off down the stretch, but there's no reason to think they can't play like they did at the beginning of the season. The Colts have Anthony Richardson, and he looked really good when he was in. We don't know if he can stay healthy, though. And the Titans have Will Levis, who, if he can develop like he was in his first NFL action, he can be a really good quarterback. But we don't know what's going to happen. This is a schedule that's either going to be really easy or really hard, because outside of this division, which is, half of this schedule, basically, they play the NFC North, which includes the Lions and the Packers, two tough matchups, and the AFC East, which, again, has the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills in it. All of those could be very, very tough teams. But we're going to run through this Jaguar schedule. Their bye week this year is on week 12. A solid place for a bye, a little later than midpoint where a lot of teams would have it, but 12 is not the worst spot to be. Starting off their schedule today, this year, they go down to Miami, a crosstown rivalry, I will say, between Jacksonville and Miami, just down I-95. You have the Jaguars in Miami, and again, this is a battle of quarterbacks that just got brand new contracts. I think the Dolphins are going to be really good. The Jaguars fall in this one, losing the first game, down 0-1 in their season. Week 2 against the Cleveland Browns. And I would give this win to the Jags if not for the fact that Myles Garrett is going to destroy that offensive line. Because of that, I'm giving the Browns a victory here in Week 2. The Jaguars fall to 0-2 on the year. In Week 3, they go all the way up to New York, take on the Buffalo Bills. That game Josh Allen versus Josh Allen, always a fun game there. I think Josh Allen might get a sack on Josh Allen here, but I think the Bills take care of business, and the Jags fall to 0-3. Week 4 against the Texans on the road, division matchup. Anything can happen, but it is on the road, so benefit of the doubt, I'm giving it to the Texans here. They fall to 0-4 on the season, the Jaguars do. Week 5, another division opponent, this time against the Colts, this time at home. We don't know how great Anthony Richardson is going to be. I'm a big Anthony Richardson believer, though, but I do have the Jags winning this game. Get their first win of the season in Week 5. Start out the season 1-4. Week 6 against Caleb Williams and the Bears on the road, the two most hyped quarterbacks in recent memories coming out of college. Caleb Williams taking on Trevor Lawrence. I have Trevor Lawrence and his $55 million taking care of business in that matchup. The Jaguars improved to 2-4 on the year. Then they take on the New England Patriots at home. And we've talked a lot about the Patriots. We talked about them yesterday, the whole Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes that's been going on with them. But I think the Jaguars take care of business here against the Patriots, improve to 3-4 on the season. So just like they lost 4 in a row, they win 3 in a row, and they're back to where they want to be. Unfortunately, the schedule takes a much tougher dip here for their next 4 games, going up against 3 teams that made the playoffs last year and the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers are the first game in Week 8. Jordan Love also signed a $55 million contract. This is going to be the first game between $55 million contract players in the history of the NFL. I think Jordan Love is going to win out on this matchup. I like his weapons and his defense just a little bit better. The Jaguars fall to 3-5. Then they head up to Philadelphia. Not a great place historically for Trevor Lawrence. They've played a game or two up there in his career, and it did not end well. The Eagles are going to win this game as well. History does not change. The Jaguars fall to 3-6 on the year. Then against the Vikings, in a game that I think could go either way. I'm giving this game to the Vikings, though. The Jaguars fall to 3-7. And then a tougher battle up in Detroit against the Lions. Last game before a much-needed bye. The Lions are a better team, though. Jared Goff also signs a massive contract. Jaguars are going around and playing every single team that gave a massive contract out to a quarterback this season. The Lions, the Packers, the Dolphins, everybody who gave out big contracts this year. We will see a battle between them and the Jaguars as well. But I think Jared Goff wins this battle of the big cats. And heading into the bye week, the Jaguars are sitting at 3-8 on the year. Not a great spot for them to be. The reverse of what they were last year, though. Maybe that gives them hope. See if they can come crawling all the way back to make a run for the playoffs here. Week 13, coming off of a bye, they take on the Houston Texans at home. They win this game. The Houston Texans are not unbeatable. They're a very good team, but this is a Jaguars team that can absolutely keep up with them in the division as well. They improve to 4-8. Then they take on the Titans on the road. I'm giving this one to the Titans, although, again, this one could go either way. It's just a division game, and when in doubt, home division team usually gets the win there, so we're giving it to the Titans here. They fall to 4-9. Then they get the Jets, a great team with Aaron Rodgers at home. I'm giving this one to the Jags. The Jets lose this game. Jets are a very good team. The Jags win this game, though, and they improve to 5-9 on the season, taking on the Raiders in Week 16 up in Vegas. It's hard to judge the Raiders right now because we don't know what their quarterback situation is, but I'm giving this win to the Jags. The Raiders lose. The Jags improve to 6-9 on the year. Then against the Titans, Week 17, rematch from Week 14 where they lost. I think the Jags win this game at home. 3-game winning streak heading into the last week of the season. I think they're basically out of playoff contention at this point, but they are 7-9, looking to go and get to that 8-win mark if they can on the road against the Colts. I think this game is going to mean a lot for both of these teams. Both are going to be trying real hard. I'm given to the Colts here. I think the Colts might be in a position to maybe win the division at this point. So we're giving this one to the Colts. They take this game. The Jaguars finish off their season at 7-10. 2 games worse, than they were last year. They end up missing out on the playoffs here, have them go 7-10. Not the kind of season that they wanted after paying Trevor Lawrence. It is just how it goes. Like I said, they get a little unlucky with the schedule. They have to play a second place schedule against a lot of really good second place teams, as well as going up against some tougher divisions outside of their own, which this division is going to be a crapshoot. I honestly don't think 7-10 takes you out of this division race. There is still a chance that they do, depending on how the rest of the division goes, end up competing for a division even down the stretch. That Colts game, well, I don't think it will decide the division. It might, depending on what's happening with the Texans down the road. But anyway, let me know what you think of the Jaguars. Gave them a C- for their grade, and had them going 7-10. Again, it might be an overreaction because of how they played at the end of last season. This is a team that very well could go anywhere. I think 7 is their low. 7 to, we'll say, 11 wins. This is a team that could be near the top of the AFC, but we will have to see what happens and as this season takes place. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Appreciate you guys for taking time out of your Thursday to talk some sports with me. We'll be back here, same time, same place tomorrow, talking about all of the breaking news from around the world of sports. If you have anything you want me to talk about, go and throw that in the comments of this video. I will check before tomorrow's live stream. But thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the other side. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Let's go. Bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna.